Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would talk about something that some subscribers had asked me about on the Facebook fan page while I get in my place of Zen and just relax and work on some arts and crafts. And some people have pointed out to me and wondered what my thoughts were on the fact that Michael Phelps, the most medal-winning Olympic athlete ever in a sport that requires extreme amounts of endurance, swimming, apparently smokes marijuana, cannabis, reefer, pot, weed, ganja, the Maui, Sweet Mary Jane, whatever it is you happen to call it. It goes by different names in different parts of the world. What do I think about the fact that he smokes this? Does this hurt his performance? Is he winning in spite of it? Or is it actually helping him in some way? Let's try to look at that objectively. Let's not try to bias. Let's just look kind of at the facts of the way this substance works in the body and see if it would be harmful or helpful, because it has some effects that could actually do both. It could both hurt and help an athlete depending upon their disposition and how they utilize it. Now, WADA does not feel anymore for Olympic athletes that it offers a real advantage. So they have changed the limits that athletes are allowed to use it at. Meaning, quite some years back, they changed the actual amount that they test for so that it didn't stop people's recreational use of it. It only stopped them from using it immediately, like before events. So that if they smoked it right before they compete, it will show up. And again, their whole idea there is really they just don't want people under mind-altering substances while competing, just for safety reasons. Not so much that they feel that it's an abuse issue. So WADA doesn't have a problem with it. So let's look into it. Now, I have done my research on this substance that many people classify as a drug, but apparently it's not a drug. It's a plant that is found in nature. And if you happen to set it on fire, there are some effects. So, from a negative perspective, what could this substance actually do to harm an athlete? Let's cover that first. Number one, you're smoking something. It could hypothetically reduce cardiovascular capacity like cigarettes do. However, what people have to factor in with that is that people who smoke cigarettes and suffer these effects are smoking large amounts every day. The majority of recreational users of this substance, particularly an athlete, probably isn't going to smoke enough to harm their cardiovascular capacity. They could, but it would be pretty expensive and take a lot of time for them to do so, because again, you have to remember, a lot of cigarette smokers who have these problems are smoking like an entire pack every single day. People who are smoking this recreationally, again, particularly an athlete who's going to be concerned with their performance, probably isn't smoking it all day, and they probably are not smoking very, very large quantities. Because we know that a lot of champion athletes did use it. We know Arnold Schwarzenegger used it. In fact, we know bodybuilders use a lot of recreational drugs. A lot of street drugs are used by bodybuilders, and I think I'm going to cover that in the near future also, or specifically what sort of non-PEDs bodybuilders oftentimes use as part of their cocktails, so that you guys get an idea of what street drugs are involved. Whole nother topic though, way too much to cover here. We're going to stick with just athletes and cannabis. Now, you've got the risk of cardiovascular capacity reduction, but that can again be avoided by just limiting quantity. The other concerns are going to be lack of motivation. That's going to be the biggest one. Lethargy and lack of motivation, and just kind of loss of inhibition and motivation and drive in general. However, that is going to be, again, short-lived. It's going to be most pronounced in people who use very large amounts, and it's going to be timing related. So if an athlete were to use this immediately before training, it could be a problem. It could actually inhibit their motivation to train hard. So if used before training, it could be detrimental to a serious athlete, because again, they're just not going to have the drive to train as hard, and they're going to have some lethargy and everything else. So that's your real concerns there on the negatives. And of course, there is the fact that something like 1 in 20 people respond violently to this substance. The vast majority of people who utilize it, it calms them down, it mellows them out. And some of them it actually induces euphoria, makes people happy. However, in around 5% of users, it induces violence, which would obviously be a problem. So obviously these athletes are probably not in that 5% if they're utilizing it. So those are your big concerns. Excessive abuse could cause reduced cardiovascular capacity and could reduce motivation, particularly timing related if using it before training or competing. Well, it's already been ruled out for competing because of the drug testing. So what are the benefits? Why are some people going to utilize it? Well, number one, appetite. You have to consider that a lot of these athletes are not always overeaters genetically. They train many, many, many hours. Someone like Michael Phelps is a perfect example. He is known to train up to 40 hours per week at the peak of his competitive season. 40 hours of intense training every week. And as an athlete with a high metabolism, because he's going to have a good body composition, so his metabolism is probably going to be higher than the average person's. His high activity level is going to give him a higher thermic effect even when he's resting. This guy burns through an enormous, absolutely enormous amount of calories, to the point to where the guy has to eat junk food to keep up. So a substance like cannabis that stimulates appetite, again, one of the most common side effects users notice, they call it the munchies, could be beneficial to an athlete who struggles to get in enough food to fuel their training and to recover. That would actually make it, in that case, a potential performance-enhancing drug by itself. Because again, if you're an undereater and you can't eat enough to keep up with your training, your performance is going to suffer. It could tip the balance there. Number two, the lethargy that we talked about in the euphoria is stress reducing, and it can help people sleep. Now that is an enormous potential performance enhancing benefit. Why? Because again, these athletes train hard year round with training workloads that the body really can't handle oftentimes. And they have to sustain that and maintain that in order to get better and be the best in a truly competitive environment. Cortisol elevation, a stress hormone, becomes problematic. Chronic cortisol elevation can basically make you lose muscle mass. It can cause you to overtrain faster. It can slow down recovery from training. This substance mellows people out. It calms them down and causes a mild state of euphoria. Well, going into any euphoric state and calming yourself, whether it's through meditation or through a substance, tends to lower cortisol levels. It tends to bring them back in check. So as a recovery aid right there, it could be beneficial. Yeah, absolutely, because it's going to mellow people back out after training. Before training, it's a problem potentially. After training, this substance mellows people out, helps them calm down, helps them get their cortisol levels and their stress hormones and everything else back into check. So that is a potential performance boon right there, just from the recovery end. Number two, causes people to get sleepy oftentimes. Same thing. Most of these athletes struggle to get enough sleep, and a lot of the drugs that induce sleep oftentimes don't give you the type of sleep that you need. You don't hit those full REM cycles of deep sleep that you need. So something like this that doesn't do it through those same pathways, it's not like trazodone or some other sleeping aid, could actually help induce a more natural state of sleep, which is going to be the most regenerative to the brain and the nervous system. And not just the body, but all of that, because your nervous system is affected by hard training also, not just your muscles. Now, you combine those three things together and think about the benefits of that post-workout, post-training for someone who just went through a long 6 or 8 hour day of training hard for their sport. A substance that helps them mellow out, calm down, induces a state of euphoria, so you lower stress hormones so you can recover faster, makes them sleepy so that they can take a nap, and makes them hungry so they can get more food in that they need to recover and to fuel their next training session. That combination of three things together, post-training for a hard training athlete, actually could classify it as a performance-enhancing drug, other than it's just a plant found in nature. So, Is the overall benefits of this substance, do the pros outweigh the cons? Yes, if an athlete is careful in how they utilized it, it absolutely could yield a performance benefit with the negatives of use being avoided. But again, if a person is like a major pothead, a very serious user who smokes all day long, those negatives could cancel out the positives very, very quickly. But if they were to use it primarily as a post-training recovery aid, appetite aid, and sleep aid, and they're not doing it prior to training, this substance could actually tip back in the favor of actually being very beneficial to an elite level professional athlete. So the consensus is going to be, if used carefully, yeah, I think it could actually boost performance, not hurt people. So that explains why you've seen quite a few champions, the best in the world. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the best in the world at what he did at the time. Michael Phelps is the best in the world at what he does right now. Few other Olympic gold medal winners that has come out that they utilize this substance. It has the potential to be a mild PED, essentially. And of course, WADA doesn't currently see it that way. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. But yeah, this substance has the potential to be a performance-enhancing substance, and it might be one of the many factors helping people like Michael Phelps achieve what he has. I mean, in addition to a host of other factors, everything from genetics to work ethic to everything else. One little tiny piece in the equation. Now, what I don't want people to think is because Michael Phelps uses this and he's the best in the world, that if you use this, you're going to be an amazing athlete. It doesn't work that way. But yeah, as part of an overall training regimen implemented intelligently, I could absolutely see this substance helping these athletes be better at what they do. And again, it's particularly on the recovery and the appetite side. Now, as far as any other opinions I have on this particular substance, I'll link my other channel's video. I discuss all my political stuff and economic stuff on my firearm channel, not this one. And I have a whole video on that there if you guys want to go check it out. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.